Quantum Break from Remedy Entertainment asks all the most important questions, such as, what if we gave the Flash a bunch of guns? To that I say, that's not the Flash. Then everything got awkward, so I took away his powers, set the difficulty to hard, and I sent him in with just the guns. So grab yourself a beer and a sandwich, or whichever similar items you prefer, and let's find out if we can beat Quantum Break as a regular dude. Our story begins on the campus grounds of the Diegetic Technical Institute with the arrival of our hero, this regular dude. He always thought his first name was kinda goofy, so he just goes by Reg. He's here to meet his friend Paul, who says he's got this wicked cool invention to show him. On the way to the physics lab, we run into someone crying about the library closing, but Reg doesn't really care about that and tells her to eat shit. We wander around the lobby for a while, not sure where to go, until Paul finally shows up, leading to a happy reunion between the two old friends. We get all the way to Paul's lab, and Reg doesn't know what he's looking at, so he just says, yeah, that's pretty cool, and Paul says, it's a time machine. Reg says that's stupid and asks why he would do that. Paul goes off rambling about when he was a kid in Toronto and his dad got ripped off with fake World Series tickets, and he plans to go back in time and watch those games. Reg asks if he really built all this just to watch the Blue Jays win in 1992, and Paul says it was also 93. And yes, he knows all he needs to about Toronto's sports teams, and the only way to see any of them win a championship is with a time machine. Reg says he's a Leafs fan, so he totally gets that, and presses the button. Just then, Reg's brother Charlie bursts into the lab in a panic and says we have to hurry up and send Paul through. Reg says he's trying, but Charlie keeps shouting something about the Butterfly Corporation, bombs in the library, and Cito Gaston's autograph. Reg double-checks the latch on the door and Paul heads through time while the Butterfly soldiers storm the lab. Charlie says he helped Paul build this thing and he knows a way out through the basement. As they escape through the hatch, the soldiers all start randomly shooting the time machine in the background, damaging the core and causing a fracture in time itself. We exit the maintenance level into the school's secret meth lab and find some soldiers. Reg draws his pistol and says not to worry, he's seen lots of cowboy movies and he should be able to handle this just fine. We get out into the courtyard and Charlie says we can take his car to get away. Reg says perfect, parking lot's right over there, and Charlie says no, we're going to take the long way through the main hall where all the soldiers came from. He hands over the car keys and we open the door to our first real fight. Still just basic guys, but I haven't played this game in a couple years, so I still have to adjust to the combat. A valuable lesson I learned immediately is enemies love to flank in this game. Usually it's not too bad, at least in the early game, because you can activate detective mode and easily catch them sneaking around. This time my only abilities are point and shoot, so staying in one spot for too long is going to get me killed 9 times out of 10 every time. There are also no combat abilities unlocked by this point in the game, so none of this matters, and it looks like Charlie is in trouble, so we run back to the main hall, carefully opening the door where we're ambushed by this regular lady in a Butterfly security uniform. He says, don't shoot! And she says, oh sorry, she doesn't really work for Butterfly, and that we need to hurry to save Charlie. We head up the stairs into the first encounter with grenades. I was worried that they would be a big problem now that I can't dodge, but nah, they have such long fuses on them, as long as I'm paying attention, they won't be much of an issue. The next section can pose a bit of a challenge though, as most of the earlier combat encounters are designed with the latest unlocked mechanic in mind, which in this case is the dodge, so it's the first large mob who all have automatic weapons and grenades. It's still not too difficult, it's not like they're bombarding us with new enemy types in every fight, so it's a bit of a coast for now. I do remember though, while I was playing this section, I ate about a half a gallon of chili. When I shot the last guy, I kind of stood up and cheered, then I farted and I thought I shit myself. So I was afraid to sit back down or stand all the way up, so I just ran Reg outside the building and scuttled off to check. And while I was gone, false alarm by the way, Charlie was taken into the library, and we gotta follow them in. I like this room because it's the first time that we get to play with some explosives. After rescuing Charlie, they throw a few more guys at us just for good measure, and on the way out, Reg thought this wheelbarrow was really cool and he wanted to keep it, but it flipped over and he can't use his hands, so he just kicked it all the way to the door. And before we can load up the wheelbarrow, the founder of Butterfly Corporation reveals himself. Reg says, no way, Paul is King Butterfly? And Paul says he's being too loud and he's going to be thrown out of the library. Charlie asks him what the hell is going on, and Paul claims that they pranked him by sending him back to the 1999 World Series instead, and that they know how much the Yankees piss him off. Charlie tries to explain that it was his own butterfly soldiers who dented the machine while he was in it, and that's what caused him to arrive in the wrong year. Paul doesn't want to hear it though and blames everyone but himself for breaking time, then drops a roof onto the only guy who can fix it. Reg is pretty pissed off now, but Paul's security chief calms him down with a surprise nap. Then they load him into a transport and take him away to a warehouse. He wakes up and notices that it's kind of odd that the two people who stayed behind when the van left were the only other people here now. Luckily, another temporal stutter kicked in and he had a chance to get away. He figures he'll probably need bullets, so he takes their guns and runs off. While shimmying along a second-floor ledge, we see some soldiers harassing someone inside, and Reg says, "Hey, that's Rick!" He tells the soldiers to leave his buddy alone, then calls them a bunch of pricks before killing them. We jump in, and Rick says, "Don't worry, he's fine, but that whiny library girl has a bullet in her head." Rick mentions he heard one of the soldiers say that Paul is at the dry docks, and this map will show us how to get there. It's a long walk across the train yard to another warehouse, and now we've unlocked most of the combat abilities, which means this is where the hard part starts. Most enemies are armored at this point, and when we get into the second warehouse, we get a new enemy type. And these guys are a pain in the ass. Their armor soaks up everything, and they require so much focus that it usually gives everyone else in the room time to get positioned. Fortunately, there's only one, so I took him out and cleared the rest of the room. Or so I thought. There was still one guy up on the walkway above, and as I tried to get him, two more jumped me from behind. Next round, I made sure it was clear before entering the back of the room, then took out the new ones easy. I know damn well that's not all of them, and surprise, surprise, they send in another heavy. And this is where I developed another new tactic which I would heavily employ throughout the rest of the game. Some good old tabletop peekaboo. For some reason, they can't shoot at any kind of an angle, so ducking down behind something 2 feet away is perfectly safe. The other side of the warehouse has some more basic guys. Then we push the button to spawn in the next fight. I was feeling pretty good so far, but this was a very unruly mob. There aren't a lot of them, but this place is so big, it has so much cover, it wears the same color palette as New Vegas, and I can't use my Witcher senses. The only indicator I have of where these guys are is where their bullets are coming from. Even the heavy was invisible to me until he got close enough for me to see his medic alert bracelet. It says he's allergic to buckshot, so I put him down and moved on. The next combat section is one of the good ones. We get the high ground, good cover, bunch of guns, an ammo bag, and all we gotta do is just stay right here and let them come to us. There are two more guys all the way on the other side who can't get over here, so I decided to be just as annoying as they are, and I stood right here for over 10 minutes, taking shots with the heavy pistol until they were down. Now the way is clear, we head outside to the biggest fight so far. I had no problem with the first section because it just stayed upstairs until they were all gone. The spawn trigger is on the ground, so when I hit that, 3 more show up. Still no issue. After they're down is where the problem comes in. Or should I say problems. The gates open and 2 heavies come out. They have some backup, but most of it stays behind the fence. And this took me a long time to figure out. I kept trying to get up close, but with 2 of them, the tabletop peekaboo is not going to work. I realized that they start pretty far apart, and they're really slow, so I ran all the way to the far end, and I used the dumpster for cover, giving me enough time to fight the first one while the other one lurched his way over. Turns out all of these guys are allergic to buckshot. Once I get through the gates, it's basically just a mop-up, and we get our first carbine. I still have to be extra careful, though. If we die in here, I have to do the whole thing over again, because there's no checkpoint until the fight ends. Just before this one can come to a natural conclusion, an armored truck crashes through the gate and gets caught in a stutter. Reg says rock on and hops over the truck to the next area where we get another new enemy type, the Striker. These are the guys I was most worried about when I started this challenge. It's bad enough having enemies flanking the way they do, but these ones have the fancy backpacks that give them the same powers that I'm not allowed to have. They rush around at super speed, and since I didn't bring any berry mentats, the only way to track them is by the fading orange streaks or the sound they make. Cover is essentially pointless, and it all boils down to just sometimes you make it, and sometimes you don't. This time I did, and we can finally work on getting the hell out of here and meeting up with Paul at the dry docks. We're too late though, and he takes off in his helicopter. And there's another fight down here, and I figured out the best way to deal with the strikers is actually the worst combat decision a regular dude could make. I backed myself into a corner with minimal cover. If there are only one or two spots they can shoot me from, then there are only one or two spots I have to keep my eye on. So no more problems down there, and we climb out to find that lady is here again. Reg thought it was pretty convenient that she was right here at the top of the ladder with a ride. As we drive off, she shifts her wallet to her front pocket and says this Rick jumped in the back at some point and insists on coming with us. Nobody says much on the way there, but once we pull into the parking lot, Reg hops out and asks what's good. And she tells us she's a janitor working for a highly classified government agency on a top-secret undercover field assignment to infiltrate Butterfly. Reg says that's not what he meant, then asks about her plans for the weekend. The door to the pool is locked, and even though he's kicked in every other door so far, he can't seem to do that right now. So as his punishment, I made him spend the next 6 minutes kicking this bollard. Around the side of the building, he calls Rick over to ask if this is his car. He says, yep, sure is. Then they both wonder who put it there and how it got over that fence. We've successfully climbed to the roof, through the window, and down the stairs to quietly let everyone in, and now is when they decide to start smashing doors down. As we enter the pool area, she explains that his brother owned this place, and that over the last few years, and Reg says, yeah, Charlie built another time machine. He can see that. It's right there. She says he also built a device that can repair the fracture, and that we have to go back in time to find it. Reg finally gives up and just asks who she is and what she knows. She says she's FBC assistant janitor, regular lady, but she just goes by Reggie. Reg says, hey, that's actually kind of cool. Then she explains that Paul got so mad seeing the Yankees win the World Series that he started the Butterfly Corporation to fund his time stuff, and that he's made a big mess of time, and as the janitor, she's here to clean it all up. Reg says just because he doesn't care doesn't mean she has to explain it like he's 5, and Reggie looks confused and says that's what her boss wrote down for her. They all try to activate the time machine, but it's not working, and Reggie says to try punching the keyboard. That didn't work either, so she says Paul's personal care worker Sophia might be able to get it running, and sends off an email, but she's a miserable bitch and tells us to suck it. Reggie asks what the plan is, and he says he's going to surrender to Butterfly so that he can get inside their headquarters. She says that's a great idea, and to call her if he needs anything. They brought him directly to Paul, who told his goons to untie him and give him a 15-minute head start before they start shooting. Once inside the building, we call Reggie, and she uses her security clearance to point us in the right direction. After knocking this guy out by punching him in the helmet, we made our first automated turret. I really thought these guys were going to be a problem, again because no dodge, but they're not. All of them have an easy way there, and their field of vision is worse than a Logitech QuickCam. So they'll never be an issue, and we move on to the next area with our first snipers. They can be really deadly if you're not careful, but they're easy to find, and as long as I get up and down quick, they can't hit me. And I remember this fight, and I thought it was going to be really hard, but it's just 2 snipers, 5 or 6 basic armored guys, and a turret at the end. We get through the building looking for Sophia's office, but when we get to the health spa, we meet a juggernaut. Equipped with heavy explosives and impenetrable armor, these guys can be scary. I know I have to get behind him, but these other 2 guys are taking too much focus away, getting me killed over and over. I tried some very careful XCOM-style strategic movement. I got in close, but that wasn't getting the job done either. So plan 3, brute force. I used my previously found safe route, and instead of trying any kind of cover game, I popped off a few lucky shots on the 2 goons and then beeline for the big guy. Running tight circles around him keeps him swinging his melee attack, occasionally giving me a shot at his back. And once he was down, Reg jumped in celebration and we move on to Sophia's office. But she isn't there. She's at the big party going on just outside, so we gotta fight our way through the parking garage. This one's not so bad. There's a trick to it though. You go left, pop the guy on the stairs. Turn right and drop his buddy. Turn around for the 2 coming up behind, and then the rest of them just seem to bunch up in the middle. I had to be very patient to figure that out, and that patience ran out after the last heavy cornered me behind a column. We get outside to the parking lot where they've set up a chronon dampener. Oh no, I cannot use my time powers. Whatever shall I do? We finally meet up with Reggie at the party, and she says she's going to grab Sophia and throw her on a boat. Reg says sounds solid and asks what he has to do. She tells us we have to go down to the boathouse and push a button and then get back to the boat. The way to the boathouse is alright. As long as I have carbine, the snipers will never be a problem. Combine that with the heavy pistol in an outdoor setting, and they don't stand a chance. At the top, a heavy comes out, but this is a huge area and I still have a speed advantage, so he drops like a sack and we get up to push the button. The way back is the real challenge. This was more a puzzle than a fight. It was all about which order to get them. And snipers first, of course. Then a bunch of them come up the hill and eat assault rifle. The main trouble is that there are 2 heavies with machine guns coming up. Heading back through the boathouse gives me a circular path so that I can bottleneck them behind this rock and just unload. Now I know I made that look easy, but that was the 23rd attempt, which means we took too long and missed the boat. Reg isn't worried though, the valet is just over there, and he makes a quick getaway in this legally distinct Italian supercar. Sadly, we have to ditch the car because Butterfly has locked down the bridge and we gotta walk across now. I stopped to play some peekaboo with a heavy before going up and walking into another juggernaut. I just laughed at him. I know how to do this now. He's got 4 guys with him this time. 2 are strikers, but I don't care. Tight circles, quick shots, he's down. We're out of here. Some wacky shit happens on the other side of the bridge, but we survive and then get to the pool where everyone is just chilling. Reggie asks them to look at this neat picture she drew, and Sophia says that's really nice and they should hang it on the fridge, but she'd like to hurry up and fix the time machine so she can go home and watch her stories. Rick goes with her, and they start chatting about their favorite soaps. With the machine ready now, Reggie volunteers to go first, but as she enters, we hear Sophia cackling maniacally from behind the computer, and she says she hopes that bitch is a Yankees fan. Reg calls her a piece of shit and says he didn't send Paul to 1999. Paul sent Paul to 1999. And she says, no man, we got it all wrong. This has nothing to do with Paul. She just hates Reggie. Then she tells us she fixed the date and we're good to go through and get Charlie's device. Reg says, okay, cool, and Rick says, come on, there's a TV in the basement they can use. He's a little annoyed he has to walk this far just to end up at the same place 10 years ago. But Reggie's waiting there. She says, don't worry, everything's good. She explains that when she showed up in 1999, the game was already over and Paul had broken into the pool with a gun. He yelled something about Chad Curtis before shooting Charlie and running away, and she says she knew we would show up eventually, so she just waited here. Reg reminds her that there's a fully functioning time machine right there. And she says, oh yeah, it's okay. She kept herself entertained by launching a decade-long online harassment campaign, which has driven Sophia to the brink of insanity. We just have to get the device out of the safe in Charlie's office, but Butterfly has figured out we're here, and we have to go out and fight them. This is one of the good ones. It comes with a nice campsite. There's lots of guys for target practice. It comes in 2 waves, with a couple of sneaky snipers hiding behind trees and around corners. But careful aiming and clever placement is all it takes to make easy work of them. Now we can go back inside to get the device, but Paul beat us there. In the ensuing scuffle, it fell to the floor and activated another of its features, returning all 3 of them to the future they came from. Reggie sends a text message and says Paul grabbed the device before it sent him back, and we gotta go jack it from him. So I take a train to Butterfly headquarters and fight off the lobby security. My favorite part about here is that the train keeps crashing, and the heavy keeps walking in front of it. Now we take the elevator to the offices, and this shouldn't be a problem. 3 orange guys and 2 strikers. That's nothing. Except I was looking for the door, and I had no idea that a juggernaut had entered the room. I said I know how to handle these guys, and while executing this one, the other one in the room that I didn't know about said, prove it, asshole. I didn't see where they came from, so I didn't have a plan going back. After noticing they come through the window above, I figured if I stand under it, I'll already be behind them when they land, and I can take one down right away. That's not quite what happened, though, and he didn't drop quick enough. Back to plan 3. If I get too far away and one starts shooting, the only way to survive is to run straight at him and yell. Works every time. Luckily, they don't seem to like shooting each other, so staying close to one keeps me safe from both. Now, don't get it twisted, this was a war, but it was a war I won. Now I have access to Paul's echo chamber where he's keeping Charlie's device, and they thought a single striker was enough to guard it. We successfully steal the device, and I tried to go back out the way we came, but Reg said there's a bunch of goons guarding the time machine, and he wants to go that way. I tried to tell him we already killed everybody on the way in, but he said no, time machine. This fight comes in two phases, the first of which isn't bad, just some strikers in a stutter. But after they're down, a whole army unfreezes, complete with 2 snipers and 2 heavies. I'm vulnerable everywhere in here. I don't have any one superior camp spot. But what I do have is a carbine, and just enough time to take out 1 sniper before the stutter starts. I found a kill box on the left side of the room, so when the stutter ended, I could just wait here and shoot. The heavies seemed to be scared of all the bodies piled up around me, and they wouldn't come into this part of the room, but also wouldn't take cover. I dealt with all of that without ever being seen by the sniper on the left, took him out, and Reg can set up the machine to send him back to the beginning of the game. And now we have to escape the university again. We have to go through the hallway and out to the parking lot, and then fight our way through the garage. And the neat thing about being in a stutter is that I can blow these cars up more than once. So I just kept doing that until the shots stopped coming in. And then of course the heavies had some more pathing issues, and one stopped in the middle of the cars, so I blew him up. And the other stopped just around that corner, and I cleared this whole room without once moving from behind this van. In more ways than one, it's now a race against time to get across the campus grounds to the library to save Charlie. We run up the escalator where a couple of thugs have set up a chronon dampener. Disabling it will cut the power and launch the second hardest fight in the game. It looks like it should be simple. The lights are out and they all have flashlights on their heads, so just shoot the lights, right? Well, this room is very small, and there are 2 heavies in here. And there's a good camp spot right here where we start, but if I don't take down at least 1 heavy before they get to me, I get cornered with no means of escape. I tried every other tactic I've figured out so far, and they all resulted in failure. I had to take out the big guy on the right first, or this was not going to end. After many attempts, I finally got a few lucky shots off into his face and dropped him only halfway across the room. Even better, rather than trying to come up behind me, the other heavy decided to walk all the way around the room too and come at me the same way, freeing up the other side for me to clear the little guys and get the lights back on, leaving me in a heads-up battle with the heavy, who's only just now made it across the room. As you can imagine, that didn't end well for him, and now we get up to the roof for a minor encounter. All snipers have to go first. This is the only non-negotiable battle tactic in this game. And I stayed up on the crane as long as I could because they all have grenades and there's no actual floor under me for them to land on. I jump down to take care of the heavy and move on to the roof of the library. And I'm sure all of you who have played this game remember this fight pretty well. And I know I do. And right here where you see me switching weapons around is where I realized I made a very big mistake. I didn't bring a carbine, and I can't hit the second sniper, which means I can't go any further than the peak of this roof. There are 2 heavies down there coming for me, and I can't take a single shot at them until they're 10 feet away. I tried this a few times because I needed to time an explosion just right to hit them both. If either of them are at full health when they pass that gas tank, I'm not going to have enough space or time to win. Now I'd figured out the plan, it was time to execute. I have to stand my ground until the Bobbsey twins get up here, then put myself in the line of fire long enough to blow the propane tank when they're both in front of it. Now a couple quick shots while I discreetly ensure that they stay together on this wall, and then I blow the other explosive barrel. But I forgot to reload and wasted some time, and the explosion only hit one of them. And oddly enough, that's the one who almost killed me, because I forgot to keep moving. Luckily, even when injured, I still have a speed advantage, so I made a tight circle, and we both kept shooting until he stopped. Don't worry, I didn't forget about the sniper. I made a break for a water tank that was within heavy pistol range, and it was over for him. Now the area was clear, and I headed forward, and hey, look what I found. We get inside and across the library, and it's about to blow, so we gotta hurry. I jump down, and I'm really mad now, because if you look closely, you'll notice someone took my wheelbarrow. Reg says he's gonna save Charlie anyway, and we pull him away from the imminent danger. It's not over yet, though, and we gotta run for it. The brothers make a dramatic escape through the window, just barely outrunning the explosion. Reg says he traveled through time to save him, and Charlie says, yeah, no shit, man, and asks if we have the device. We hand it over, and he asks where Reg was keeping that, as it very clearly wasn't in any of his pockets. He says don't worry about that and asks what we have to do next. Charlie says we have to plug it into his time machine at the pool, which will amplify its signal enough to reverse the fracture, ending the stutters and preventing time itself from coming to a complete stop. We escape back through the main hall, but Charlie is having trouble keeping up. He apologizes and says he's not used to being this tall or wearing shoes. We get back outside and he tells us to hang on, he wants to try something. Reg looks out across the parking lot and says, "Oh, that's how that got there." Then we steal Rick's car and rush off to the pool. Reg says, "All right, here we are," and gestures for Charlie to do his thing. But he says, "Not right now, man. It won't work in this time. We have to activate the machine and go back to the future." And off we go. Charlie's never used the machine before and is annoyed that he has to walk this far just to come out at the same place a few hours later. He says if they had just waited, they could have been sitting down. Before exiting, Reg warns Charlie that Butterfly was storming the pool when he left, and Paul is on his way here. He says that sounds like our problem, and he'll be waiting in the machine until the fight's over. And here it is, the final showdown. Paul enters the room demanding we hand over the device, and Reg tells him he doesn't even know how to use it, and Paul says don't worry about it, he'll figure it out. Reg says his brother can fix it right now, and all he has to do is piss off. But Paul's not having it. He says he's going to use it to permanently erase the Yankees from history. Reg calls him a monster and starts shooting. I knew way back at the start that this was going to be the hardest part of the game. I had to come up with a strategy, but that first required learning the timing on the explosions. When one of these red lights shows up, it's time to get moving. And since I can never stop to read the room, every decision has to be made on the fly, which often gives the strikers a chance to get behind me. I died a dozen times just in the first phase, and it's only 4 of these guys. This should be easy. The second phase brings out 5 orange guys, 2 strikers, a heavy machine gun technician, and the rate of his AoE attack has doubled. After a few more tries, I thought there's no goddamn way I'm getting through 4 phases of this. So I sent one of my guys to Reddit to get some tips. He brought back some real good advice. Use the rifle, go for headshots. I know that their eyes are weak spots, but I was so focused on maximizing DPS that I otherwise never would have thought to use the rifle. The other tip was to stay at the back of the room. There's an ammo bag back there, and I can just be constantly reloading as I run from side to side. This was exactly the right thing to do, and I dropped all the little guys in Phase 2, then found the heavy was yet again having some navigational issues, and was stuck behind some crates. This was my chance. I went for the eyes, and I ended him before Paul had a chance to send off another explosion. His defenses dropped, and I took the shot. He fell from his perch, and I was shocked. I swear I remember this fight being 4 phases. But no, it's only 2. I was at the end the whole time, and I was worried about nothing. We jump down to confront him, and Reg has the perfectly natural reaction of punching him in the mouth and telling him to go home. He was really mad, but says he wants to stay and watch. Reg says whatever, and we go tell Charlie the fight's over and he can come fix time now. He sets up the device and activates it. Reg says it looks like it's going to fall over, so he braces just in case he needs to catch it. There's a big fancy light show, and just like that, it worked. The temporal fracture was repaired, and the universe was saved. After all of this, Paul had finally admitted that he had been a deeply closeted Yankees fan this whole time, and sold the Butterfly Corporation to take a job with the team as the assistant to the traveling secretary. The new King Butterfly tried to recruit Reg into his army of goons, but he said, "No way, bro. He's already got a job as the sheriff of a small town in Washington." In fact, he really should be getting back to work soon, and that's going to be the end of our story. So, can you beat Quantum Break as a regular dude? Well, that depends on how you look at it. As an overall rule, straight up no. The navigation in this game is mostly puzzles and janky platforming, which requires the use of powers, and you may have noticed I cleverly kept all of that stuff out of the story. However, as a combat challenge, you absolutely can, and if I'm being totally honest, by the end of it, it was actually easier and more fun than using the powers. Having to survey the battlefield before the fight starts, keep track of where everyone is, actually utilize cover, and just generally pay attention makes for a very fun tactical adventure. Whereas when you got superpowers, you're always fighting the temptation to just say fuck it and rush everyone. Anyways, that's the end, and if you had fun, you want to see more of this kind of stuff, make sure you don't miss the inevitable return to the Remedyverse. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, but most importantly, stay crunchy. Goodbye!